Hello, this is Philosophy, Poetics, for Peace, Session 1, Track 4. Let's define what poetry, poetics, for peace is quickly. Basically, when we speak of the terminology here, we're talking about philosophy or the love of wisdom, which is the meaning of philosophy, from the root words phileo and Sophie from the Greeks. Love of wisdom. Therefore, a philosopher would rightly be called a lover of wisdom. So, someone who loves wisdom can be called a philosopher, whether or not you're a professional or not. Socrates talks about every unexamined life is not worth living. So you don't have to be what we call a professional philosopher. Anybody could be a philosopher as long as they love wisdom. And what is wisdom? Understanding. Putting knowledge, and take knowledge and draw conclusions from observances and facts and figures and observances and images that we see, and bring deeper understanding of these interactions that are brought before us. This knowledge, and taking it and drawing new conclusions, new deductions or inductions. Figuring things out. And then applying these to our lives, these new deductions or these new conclusions. By poetics, we mean, in a broad sense, art, aesthetics, a certain flowing of things in our life, putting grace in our life. Thank you. So life becomes beautiful and flowing. Peace, meaning harmony with nature, harmony with the laws of nature, harmony, staying on the right path so that we don't go off the pure principles that we build up by using logic and reason to travel forward toward betterment and improvement, toward truth and reality, what is. So here we're going to talk mainly about ethics. This part of philosophy, which I feel is the foundation of philosophy, of wisdom. And I believe right in the beginning of philosophy, philosophers from Greece were concerned with bettering oneself. And not only the knowledge and tools, understanding the tools we use to find betterment, find truth, what is right and what is wrong, but also applying it to ourselves to make the cycle complete. Now, also ethics, that certainly you can use scientific reasoning and find things out about the past, history, and learning, using these to understand life as well. You can also use, in a broad sense, use reasoning and wisdom, a type of wisdom, to build gadgets. Industrial age uses it, I suppose, and building spaceships and vehicles and things of that nature. But without ethics, what is right and wrong, you won't properly use these gadgets. So ethics, to me, is the foundation of philosophy, of wisdom. This is the key to build up a storage of principles, making these principles a foundation of our action, and setting up a value system for our betterment and flow through life, so that it will become a more improved life and a more relaxing and fulfilling life, at which you would get a deep satisfaction. Now, if you can understand all of that, you're 75% of what wisdom is all about, understanding it. I had a teacher, creative writing teacher, had a Pulitzer, and he was my mentor for writing. And he would keep saying, keep it in your own voice, clear, and keep it simple. And people would travel to see him and to be in his workshops, would travel throughout the country. But very few people would understand how to do that, or couldn't understand to be able to put something simple and in their own voice and clear. But here in this talk, this series of talks, we are going to make things very simple and clear, and as in a normal conversation as possible, whereas we are dealing with advancement in truth, and we want to do it in a way that we don't stumble. We want to apply it to ourselves and to others around us and make a better world. This, to me, and to many in the past, early philosophers, was what they were seeking. The word philosophy, wisdom, and many words used in philosophical talk have been hijacked to mean other things. We've gone over this in our other, chats, and we'll go over this again. But for now, I'm trying to reach a point today, and I will have to leave some of this discussion for later. So, once again, we will be dealing mainly with ethics in this talk. these talks.
Thank you.
Reverting back to what philosophy of wisdom was mostly set out by our predecessors who sought wisdom in the Greek foundation of philosophy in the Western world. We'll also speak of the Eastern world and what they gave to us as well. But I think the likes of of Confucius and many of the wise men of the East follow the same thread of finding truth for betterment. Thank you. Now, the other types of wisdom that deal with buildings and the wisdom to build things, you can, if you don't have the ethical wisdom of what right is wrong, you can use those gadgets to do harm just as well as do good. So that's why ethics is so important. And another thing about ethics and this type of wisdom, it hasn't changed that much since at least a couple thousand years before AD. So we had wise men who took the observances and observations and the semblances and images around them and were able to deduce and to form a hypothesis of and to prove it by mentally putting two and two together and drawing a conclusion. So that the wisdom of Confucius, the wisdom of Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Diogenes, all can be used today and can be relevant today. Whereas much of the other fields of philosophy build on each other. We know astronomy builds on a knowledge that we have. So what might be correct 10 years ago would be changed or grown into new developments even within 10 years. But ethics, right and wrong, hasn't changed that much. Now there are tools that for logic is and reason and a certain type of intuition will guide us. Perhaps insight, imagination lays a helping hand as well, but we want to keep close content or contact with reason and common sense as well to drive us forward into the understanding of truth and what is, so we can adopt this truth to make our lives better. And when I mean better, a closeness to what is will give us a greater satisfaction and opportunity to grow in this life that we've been blessed actually to have. It is a time for us to develop these skills and to understand the concepts that will lead to a more productive, more flowing and graceful life, one that has less tragedy, less tangents that go off the path of what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is not. Now, there was a point I was trying to try and make, and this is why we don't rush and talk fast. We are in untended territory. So, one of our values that we look toward ourselves and while we're doing this is to be gentle with ourselves in our movement toward finding truth. If we rush, if we get angry, if we lose our patience and our focus, we will stumble. We'll go off the path and then we'll have to come back on later. There's really no way out. I mean, that's our goal, to be able to better ourselves and therefore better our children and our grandchildren and the world, and make it easier for them to understand these laws, these fundamental truths, these values that improve our life. We look for our betterment when we act. We want to do what is best for us. That's a natural occurrence. And our problem is that we often don't look far ahead. In other words, we take an act or desire to satisfy us temporarily and do not judge our actions for a longer term satisfaction of our wants. I'll give you a quick example just to make sure we are on the right path here in this discussion. For instance, we sort of know now that smoking is not good for us. However, we often will take a cigarette because we feel it's better for us for the moment than a long term. We might say, well, I'll stop next week, but I have that need now to smoke. And so we'll reach for a cigarette, or perhaps in the past, we would reach for the cigarette, even though we know in the long term it's better not to smoke. So we still do what we think is best for us. And when we make choices, we also have that problem where when you start to make a decision, you're going to have a choice which will give you a little bit of stress, because when you choose one, you're not going to choose the other. For instance, if you do smoke and satisfy that need and what you think is best for the moment, you also know that it's good not to smoke at all, so you will be frustrated. Yes, you did get the short-term desire, but you did not get the long-term desire. So it can be somewhat frustrating making choices. It's not a simple process of just knowing what is best. There are bad habits to attend to, and there are some innate drives that one might have to deal with. So, looking for the right path, looking for that path which is true, is not simply doing what you feel is correct. You have to overcome the struggle of an addictive personality, or at least breaking habits of our character or personality. Now, there's many other things besides those stumbling blocks that we'll talk about. But the great deep satisfaction one gets when one doesn't agonize about right or wrong, looking back, watching other people struggling, going around in circles, this is one way to see your advancement and be thankful that you are on the right path. Again, Socrates, who most people consider the father of Western philosophy, said unexamined life by everyone is not worth living. He means everyone, you and I. As soon as you have a clear thinking process, when you become a young adult and can question things and use some form of logic and reasoning, you can reevaluate the values that were given to you by others, and therefore set up your own guiding principles. And everyone should do this and take the opportunity of this world and of this life in order to improve oneself. And to share this is a great reward. It is a reward for yourself and a reward for others. It's also a reward for the people to come. We should leave this place at least a little better than we left it, or we entered it. Thank you.